In 15 minutes, US F-35s obliterated the fleet from afar. Ships sunk, radars blind, destroyed before seeing the enemy.
January 14th, 2026, 0642 hours, the Caribbean Sea, 80 nautical miles north of the Venezuelan coast. Dawn breaks over the water, but there is no warmth in it. The ocean is a churning, gray expanse, Sea State 4. Waves, capping at 8 feet, roll through the darkness like moving hills of concrete. The air does not smell like a tropical paradise. It smells of salt spray, unburnt diesel, and anxiety. Here in this patch of turbulent water, a ghost fleet is trying to do the impossible. They are trying to break the blockade. The lead vessel cuts through the chop, her bow burying itself in green water before rising, shedding foam like a surfacing whale. She is the Mariscal Sucre, F-21, an Italian-built Lupo-class frigate. She is beautiful, in the way a vintage sports car is beautiful. Sleek lines, aggressive profile. But she is a relic. Launched in the early 1980s, she is a creature of the Cold War, a museum piece drafted back into service by a regime that has run out of options. Her steel hull groans under the stress of the waves. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of hydraulic fluid and stale coffee. The sailors in the Combat Information Center are watching their screens with a desperate intensity. They are looking for the enemy, but their screens show nothing but the clutter of the waves. Flanking the frigate are the escorts, and this is where the desperation becomes visible. They are not destroyers. They are not corvettes. They are speedboats. Iranian-supplied Payka-AP-3 fast attack craft. 17 meters of fiberglass and epoxy, designed for the calm waters of the Persian Gulf, now being tossed around in the open Atlantic. For the crews of these small boats, the mission is already a torture chamber. The Payka-AP is a planing hull. It is designed to skim over the water at 50 knots. But in Sea State 4, you cannot skim. You slam. Every wave is a collision. The hull launches off a crest, hangs in the air for a terrifying second, and then smashes down into the trough. The vertical acceleration spikes to 6 Gs, again and again, every 4 seconds. The impact travels up the spine, compressing vertebrae. It rattles the teeth. Inside the cramped cockpits, the Iranian and Venezuelan crews are gripping the safety rails until their knuckles turn white. They are suffering from Sopite syndrome. It is a neurological condition caused by prolonged, rhythmic motion. It is not just nausea. It is a profound, crushing lethargy. Your brain, overwhelmed by the vestibular chaos, simply tries to shut down. Their reaction times have degraded by 50%. They are not scanning the horizon for American ships. They are just trying not to vomit on their control panels. They are combat ineffective, and the shooting hasn't even started yet. This is the pathetic reality of the axis of resistance in the Caribbean. A blind frigate and a pack of C6 speedboats sailing straight into a kill zone they cannot see to fight an enemy that isn't even there. 400 miles to the north, the contrast is absolute. The flight deck of the USS Gerald R Ford is a flat gray plane of non-skid surface, hovering 60 feet above the ocean. It is a city of steel, powered by 2 A-1B nuclear reactors. It does not groan in the waves. It plows through them with the indifference of 100,000 tons of displacement. There is no diesel smoke here. There is only the smell of jet fuel and the ozone scent of high-voltage electricity. On the waste catapult, an F-35 Sea Lightning II is locked into the shuttle. This is the first forensic signature of the new era of warfare. If you were standing on the deck of an old Nimitz-class carrier, a launch would be an explosion, steam pistons firing, a violent, percussive pop that shakes your chest, followed by a cloud of hot fog. But this is the Ford. There is no steam. There is only the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, EMALS. The pilot, call sign Voodoo, salutes the shooter. The button is pressed. There is no bang. Instead, the air fills with the rising variable frequency whine of the linear induction motor, a rising electronic whine. It starts low, a throbbing bass hum, and climbs rapidly to a shriek. This is the sound of electricity pulsing through the linear induction motor. A traveling magnetic wave is grabbing the launch shuttle and dragging it forward with invisible hands. The acceleration is smooth, tunnable. It doesn't jerk the airframe, it pushes it. The 27-ton stealth fighter surges down the track. In 2 seconds, it goes from 0 to 160 knots. The landing gear leaves the deck. The F-35 hangs in the air for a heartbeat. the afterburner of its Pratt & Whitney F135 engine glowing like a blue diamond before it banks hard to the south. It is carrying two things. Under its wings, tucked away to preserve its stealth profile, are nothing. But inside its internal weapons bay, and networked to the destroyers below, is data. This pilot is not going to dogfight. He is a sensor node. He is a forward observer for a firing squad that is sitting 300 miles behind him. He climbs to 40,000 feet, effectively disappearing from the universe. To the Venezuelan radar operators, he is nothing more than a glitch in the static, a ghost. Let us pause the simulation here. We need to understand the physics of the trap that has just been set. To understand why the Mariscal Sucre is already dead, you have to understand the tyranny of geometry. It is called the radar horizon. Naval warfare is not like the movies. You cannot see forever. Radar beams travel in straight lines, like beams of light. But the Earth is a sphere. It curves. The main air search radar on the Venezuelan frigate is the RAN-10S. The antenna is mounted on the main mast, roughly 82 feet above the waterline. That sounds high. But against a sea-skimming threat, it is pitifully low. We can calculate the exact moment of detection using the standard horizon formula. 1.23 times the square root of the radar height plus 1.23 times the square root of the target height. Do the math. The radar is at 82 feet. The incoming missile, the AGM-158 CLRASM, flies at just 15 feet above the wavetops. When you run the numbers, the result is 16 nautical miles. That is the hard limit. The physical wall. The Mariscal Sucre cannot see anything below the horizon beyond 16 miles. It doesn't matter how good the operator is. It doesn't matter how much they panic. The curvature of the Earth is shielding the missile. Now, consider the speed. The ERASED travels at high subsonic speed, roughly 600 miles per hour. That is 1,000 feet per second. 16 miles is roughly 97,000 feet. Divide 97,000 by 1,000. 97 seconds. That is the total timeline of the engagement from the perspective of the Venezuelan crew. 1 minute and 37 seconds. That is the time between the first possible blip on the screen and the warhead detonating inside the hull. In that minute and a half, a tired, terrified crew has to realize they are under attack, identify the threat, lock a fire control radar onto a target the size of a suitcase moving at Mach 0.9, and fire a defensive missile. It is impossible. The math forbids survival. But the asymmetry goes deeper than just geometry. It is about the nature of the weapon itself. The United States Navy is firing the long-range anti-ship missile, the LRASM. This is not a dumb rocket. It is an intelligent, autonomous drone with a 1,000-pound warhead. Old missiles like the Harpoon or the French Exocet are active hunters. In the final few miles, they turn on a small radar in their nose. They scream out radio waves, looking for a reflection. It's like searching for someone in a dark room by turning on a flashlight. It works, but it also tells everyone exactly where you are. The LRASM is different. It is a passive hunter. It doesn't emit anything. It flies in total electronic silence. It uses a BAE system sensor suite to listen. It listens for the enemy's radar pulses. It listens for their radio chatter. It hunts by following the very signals the Mariscal Sucre is using to try and defend itself. It is a silent assassin. It rides the victim's own radar beam back to the source, and when it gets close, it doesn't just hit the ship randomly. It opens an imaging infrared eye, a camera, and looks at the target. An onboard AI compares the shape of the ship to a database of wireframe models. It sees the hull number. It sees the mast. It identifies the target as a Lupo-class frigate, and then it chooses exactly where to hit. It doesn't aim for the waterline. It aims for the Combat Information Center. It targets the CIC superstructure based on wireframe correlation. This is the technical reality of the engagement. On one side, a network of stealth fighters and intelligent munitions that cost $3 million a shot. On the other side, a rusted frigate from 1985 and a few C6 sailors in fiberglass boats. The Venezuelans believe they are sailing into a battle. They are wrong. They are sailing into an execution. The trap is set. The F-35 has painted the target. The data has been beamed back to the destroyer USS Gravely via the Link 16 network. The vertical launch system cells are open. Back on the bridge of the USS Gravely, the atmosphere is surgical. There is no yelling. There is no cinematic drama. There is only the hum of the cooling fans in the server racks and the soft click of trackballs. The fire control officer watches the data stream from the F-35 300 miles away. The target track is confirmed, a red diamond on a blue screen. He flips the plastic cover on the launch key. He does not hesitate. Track 3002, solution valid. Authorize launch. HOAC, salvo selected. Take on the foredeck of the destroyer. The Mark 41 vertical launch system erupts. This is not the smooth electric launch of the carrier. This is brute force chemistry. The cover of Cell 3 blows open, a column of fire, and white smoke shoots 200 feet into the air. The ERASED rides a pillar of flame, pushed skyward by a Mark 114 solid rocket booster. It screams upward, defying gravity, until it reaches its cruise altitude. Then, the physics changes. The booster burns out and falls away. The missile's internal Williams F-107 turbofan engine ignites. The roar of the rocket is replaced by a soft, high-pitched whistle. Wings deploy from the fuselage. The weapon transforms from a ballistic projectile into a predator. It dives down, hugging the curvature of the Earth, settling in at just 15 feet above the crashing waves. It is now a semi-autonomous robot, flying at 600 miles per hour, making its own decisions. It does not fly in a straight line. It uses waypoints to skirt around commercial shipping lanes, hiding in the noise, staying silent, hunting the specific electronic fingerprint of the Mariscal Sucre. Aboard the Venezuelan frigate, the nightmare is about to begin. But for now, there is only the misery of the storm. The radar operator in the Combat Information Center wipes sweat from his eyes. His screen is a mess of green static, sea clutter caused by the rough waves reflecting the radar energy. He is tired. He is nauseous. He is looking for a plane at high altitude. He is not looking for a cruise missile hiding in the spray of the waves. Then, the geometry closes the trap, 16 miles out. The ERASED breaks the radar horizon. On the Venezuelan console, a faint blip appears. It is there for a second, then gone, buried in the clutter. Then it appears again, closer. The operator frowns. He adjusts the gain. Is it a ghost signal? A wave? By the time his brain processes the pattern, 6 seconds have passed. The missile has traveled nearly a mile. Then the electronic support measures suite screams. The ship's threat warning receiver has detected the terminal seeker of the missile. But wait, the ERASED is passive. It doesn't emit. There is no warning screen. There is no lock-on tone. That is the horror of this specific weapon. The vampire call never comes. The only warning is the visual contact. Look out! Port side, low! The voice cracks over the intercom, but it is too late. The human brain takes 0.5 seconds to react. The hand takes another 0.5 seconds to move. The fire control system takes 4 seconds to slew the guns. Physics does not care about their panic. 2 miles out. The LRASM's onboard computer makes its final calculation. It identifies the heat signature of the frigate's exhaust stack. It correlates the silhouette. It confirms target alpha. The missile pitches up slightly. It is not aiming for the waterline. It is performing a pop-up maneuver to dive onto the deck. It wants to go through the roof. Impact. The 1,000-pound WDU-42/B warhead strikes the superstructure of the Mariscal Sucre just aft of the bridge. Let's slow this down. Micro zoom into the millisecond of death. The nose of the missile is made of hardened steel. The hull of the frigate is made of 8mm mild steel. At 600 miles per hour, the missile does not crumple. It functions as a kinetic punch. It shears through the outer plating like a bullet going through a soda can. It smashes through the bulkhead of the officer's mess. It tears through the ventilation ducts. It enters the deep vitals of the ship. Then the fuse initiates. The FMU-156B fuse has a delay setting. It waits until the weapon is buried deep inside the ship's intestinal tract. 0.02 seconds after impact. Detonation. 450 kilograms of PBX and 109 high explosive turn into hot gas instantly. The expansion velocity is 26,000 feet per second. Inside the closed compartments of the ship, the pressure spikes to thousands of pounds per square inch. The steel bulkheads don't just bend, they liquefy. The blast wave moves faster than the speed of sound, turning the air inside the ship into a solid hammer. Any sailor in the adjacent compartments is dead before their brain can register the flash. The overpressure ruptures their lungs and crushes their internal organs. But the blast is not what kills the ship. The heat is. The fireball reaches 3,000 degrees Celsius. It melts the aluminum ladder wells. It ignites the insulation on the electrical cables. But most critically, it finds the magazine. The Mariscal Sucre is carrying hundreds of rounds of 127mm ammunition for its main gun. The propellant for these shells is nitrocellulose. Nitrocellulose is unstable. If you heat it to 170 degrees Celsius, just 340 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature of a hot oven, it doesn't wait for a spark. It auto-ignites. This is called the fast cook-off. A split second after the missile explodes, the ship's own magazine detonates. This is a catastrophic event. It is the equivalent of a tactical nuclear weapon going off inside the hull. The entire forward section of the frigate is ripped open. The main deck peels back like the lid of a sardine can. The 50-ton gun turret is thrown into the air, spinning like a toy. The spine of the ship, the keel, snaps under the whiplash force. The Mariscal Sucre is cut in half. For the escort boats, the Paycap 3s, the scene is apocalyptic. They are tossing in the waves, 500 yards away. Their crews, sick and exhausted, look up to see their flagship disintegrate. The shockwave hits them a second later. It is a physical wall of air. It hits the fiberglass hulls of the speedboats like a giant fist. Windows shatter. Radar masts snap off. The crews are thrown against their consoles, but they are the lucky ones. They are still alive. But survival in naval warfare is a cruel concept. The wreckage of the frigate sinks in less than 3 minutes. It does not glide down. It plummets, dragged down by the weight of the flooded machinery spaces. What is left on the surface is the aftermath zone. A thick, black slurry spreads across the heaving waves. This is the fuel. The frigate was carrying hundreds of tons of marine diesel and JP-5 aviation fuel. The tanks ruptured during the breakup. Now, the sea is covered in oil. And because of the fires, the oil is burning. Survivors who were blown overboard are now swimming in what forensic pathologists call fire water. It is a chemical hellscape. The men tread water, gasping for air. But they are not inhaling oxygen. They are inhaling a mist of volatile organic compounds, benzene, toluene, xylene. When this mixture enters the lungs, it coats the alveoli, the tiny sacs that process oxygen. It strips away the surfactant that keeps the lungs open. The result is chemical pneumonitis. The lungs fill with fluid. The sailors drown from the inside out, even if they keep their heads above water. The oil stings their eyes like acid. The smoke chokes them. And all around them, the ocean is silent. The American destroyers never appear. The F-35s never do a victory flyby. There is no surrender ceremony. The U.S. Navy fired from 300 miles away and simply turned around. They didn't even watch the ship sink. They didn't have to. The telemetry confirmed the kill. This is the cold reality of 21st century naval combat. It is not a duel. It is a transaction. The Venezuelans paid with their lives. The Americans paid with a $3 million missile. The exchange ratio is 150 to 1. A $500 million capital ship erased by a robotic suicide drone. So, what is the verdict? The sinking of the Mariscal Sucre is not just a tactical defeat for Venezuela. It is a tombstone for an entire era of warfare. For decades, nations believed that if they bought a ship, put a flag on it, and sailed it out, they projected power. They believed that courage and will were the deciding factors. But the Caribbean graveyard proves that physics has no respect for courage. The Venezuelan sailors were brave. They followed orders. They sailed into a storm to defend their nation. But they died because their radar horizon was 16 miles, and the enemy's kill chain was 300 miles. They died because they brought an analog knife to a digital gunfight. In modern war, if you cannot see the enemy, you are not a combatant. You are a target. If you are the commander, looking at this simulation, ask yourself, is your fleet a shield? Or is it just a collection of very expensive metal coffins waiting for a software update? The ocean has swallowed the evidence. The oil slick will disperse in a week, but the data remains forever. The ocean keeps its secrets, but the data never lies. See you in the next briefing.